Okay, you want my best Thrustmaster T598 settings for Forza Horizon 6, and this is really important because I know the T598 is such a popular wheel, so aggressively priced, and I just think Forza Horizon 6 is going to be one of the biggest racing games that we've ever seen. So what you're seeing on screen right now is literally the settings. Now you can see the center spring scale. I brought that really down for this, on which I'm going to explain. I'm going to explain the philosophy behind these settings, why I think it plays to the T598's strengths. Also, the wheel damper I'm bringing down as well. Now, my settings on the wheel itself, the T598, are the same as my Gran Turismo settings. So we're running the engine rule, we're running the gear jolt, we're running the settings at EXT Extreme, I think they are. So those are my GT7 settings on the wheel, but it's all important what we do in Forza Horizon 6. And the most important thing, I would say, actually more important than the center spring, but I'll explain why I changed that, is the sensitivity, okay? Because we have to understand that the T598 is not the most powerful base in the world. It's a 5 Nm base, although it does overshoot, but also the bundled rim that comes with the T598 and the Gran Turismo rim I'm using here are both quite small rims, quite small diameter rims, compared to what you can do on other systems. For example, on the MOZA, I've been using my Lamborghini Ruelto reel, which is much bigger. And that changes the characteristics of the wheelbase, the wheel, and the force feedback. Now, if I was to run, or when I did run, actually, Forza Horizon 6 on my T598 with sensitivity at 1, so sensitivity all the way to the right, you're kind of over-exaggerating what should be a strength of the T598 and turning it into a weakness. And that's because a small movement on this already small wheel has a massive effect on the car. And it meant that I was just oversteering a lot. It meant that when I was turning into corners, if I made a small mistake, applied a little bit too much input, the car was already gone, the rear was already turning around, and I could really save it. So I didn't want to exaggerate what should already be quite a playful experience in T598. So by lowering that sensitivity from 1, I mean we've still 0.7, so we're still more than 0.5, but lowering it from 1 to 0.7, I got to a really nice sweet spot, which meant I felt the wheel was still playful. And as you can see here, what we're looking for when I do settings videos is when I'm making an input on the wheel, is it having a clear, fast and realistic input on the car. Now that's not going to excuse bad driving if you still put bad inputs in. As we see here, I just bit off a little bit more than I can chew. The car is going to spin out, but that's realistic. What's not realistic in my opinion is applying either a very small rotation on your steering wheel and getting a massive input on the car, or I would say even worse, when you're really waggling the wheel and nothing is happening to the car. Those are two ends of settings that I don't want to be in when I'm creating settings for you. I want to be in the sweet spot in the middle, and it's going to be slightly different for every wheel. Remember, my Logitech RS50 settings, I was using quite a big diameter drifting wheel with no paddle shifters that I was often driving one-handed because I was on the H-paddle shifter. Again, that requires a different setting for it. But coming to the T598, what's really impressive on the T598 is it broadly worked out of the box. However, the pedals were a bit problematic. I think I needed to invert them, and then I had to add a little dead zone because the pedals were just registering, and so when I was trying to bind my steering or bind anything, the pedal was like jumping in there saying, yeah, I'll do this, and then you end up like every possible button your right pedal is doing. So once I changed that and also had to re-split the axes for some reason, it worked absolutely fine. And then when I started driving, I noticed that the gear jolt is working, which is fantastic. So it's a really nice feature for Thrustmaster. So I've got the gear jolt working, which I think makes sense in a game like this. Also, it felt like the engine rule was working. Like I've got engine rule set up on my T598. It kind of felt like maybe that was working, or at least the force feedback felt very busy, very active, very kind of like engrossing. I didn't feel like I needed to, up kind of like, road feel or stuff like that. It was already a very engaging feeling of tyres driving on abrasive tarmac, or like, tarmac with little bumps in it, if that makes sense. So that was really impressive. I was very happy with that. It's very easy to map everything onto my Gran Turismo wheel. Slightly annoying that the little joysticks on the GT wheel don't work as a mouse. That would be absolutely fantastic. That's what happens in Gran Turismo 7. So if they can make that happen, that'd be great. But it does seem that Thrustmaster has good support for Forza Horizon 6. You can even see that the gear indicator on the wheelbase is working absolutely fantastically. So pretty good support out of the box. Then you just need to tune it. Obviously, if you're going to be using the SF1000 wheel, SF25 wheel, you probably want to have some different settings. You're probably going to want to tune the sensitivity there the most. And actually, if you watch my Fanatec settings, by the way, I just recommend watching all of my settings videos for all different brands, because you probably learn something as I'm using wheels of different shapes. On my Fanatec settings, I did something completely radical when it came to wheel rotation. And by the way, if you change your wheel rotation and your sensitivity, you can have lots of really complicated outcomes, often not good. Like, probably better to change one and not the other, unless you want to be super radical. Now, I couldn't change my wheel rotation in the T598, I just couldn't find out how to do it, so I just went straight for sensitivity. But if you look here, you can see that I think that means that my wheel animation, at least in the car, is 1-to-1. So if that's important for you, keep your wheel rotation as it should be in Thrustmaster, and then change the sensitivity in the Forza Horizon 6 settings. Also worth saying that the center spring, again, I didn't feel like I needed it here because the force feedback just felt like kind of busy, and also I wanted to have this like much more playful style. And again, I think because the T598 is a 5Nm wheel, I think keeping all of those forces like on the more dynamic side makes sense for this wheel. And I'm really happy with these settings. Like, if you have a T598, I 100% recommend you take a screenshot of what I showed you at the beginning of this video and you put them into T598 and you come back here into the comments and let me know what you think, because you can actually drive quite well in this car. The downside, I would say, and there's always compromise with settings, right? The downside, I would say, with these settings is, and the change I made to sensitivity, for example, is that you can't go as easily from lock to lock. So if the car starts spinning out, or is spinning out frequently, as you saw earlier in this clip I'm showing you here, which is all an unbroken clips, I'm just showing you exactly how the car is driving with these settings, is harder to get to lock at the other end and, like, you know, counter steer it. Now, it's quite hard to counter steer some spins in Forza Horizon 6 anyway, you'll see that. I just think that's because the game is fundamentally designed for controller, or is designed to be primarily played on controller. If you imagine how controller players play the game, they're often tapping to full lock or holding full lock. So the game is obviously quite responsive for full lock, or at least doesn't punish you for being on full lock like a sim racing title might do, where you'll start to really understeer. So you are going to lose a little bit of that because I changed sensitivity to 0.7, and what that means is you just need to drive the car a little bit more responsibly, in my opinion. Like, you don't want to be flinging it from left to right. Now, when I show you actually my Fanatec settings, you'll see me really flinging the car. And also interesting, in my Logitech settings, if you see me drive the Lotus Evira, is it the electric one, at the circuit, you'll see me absolutely crazy on the wheel. But I do want to show you here some off-road, so I don't want to scare you like, oh, it's, you know, these settings are no good. We're talking very small philosophical margins, but you can see here that I'm able to drive this Skyline off-road, and that obviously requires a lot of movement on the wheel. Like, the back end is coming out a lot on loose surface like this, it really gets exaggerated, and clearly I can still control it. So I think good settings, but my philosophy has been, let's play into the playful side of the T598, let's not make it oversensitive, because already you tend to be using kind of small wheels here with lower force feedback, so you don't want to exaggerate any mistakes you might be making. But I've really enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure to subscribe if this has helped you, really helps me out. And I have a link to buy the T598 and loads of other products in my description below. I'll see you in the next video.